Could Walker White be a future fantasy asset in the coming seasons? We'll talk about it right after this. If you like what we are doing here at Camps to Can, please consider hitting that like and subscribe button. We are trying to get to 5,000 subs by the start of the college football season so we can continue to spread the good word of college fantasy football all around the world. Walker White, former high-end quarterback recruit. He was a 4-star in last year's class who ended up committing to Auburn and is a very special athlete. Now, we do only have him in our athletic database as a .589 athlete with a ball velo of 55, which is about average. I would say that 53 to 55 range is average. Anything 60 and above is elite. He is a guy who can make plays with his legs. He is a very stout quarterback, big-bodied guy who, again, I think can make every play on the field. The biggest thing, and we'll just go ahead and get it out right at the beginning of the video, the biggest issue with Walker White's game is his accuracy. He's just not very accurate at times throwing the ball, and he lacks that consistency. But if you go look at what he was able to do at the high school level, I mean, at times he was the best athlete on the field, and I think could be close to that on the college football field. Now, obviously, we didn't see him at all in his freshman season with Auburn, which is a little bit weird considering Peyton Thorne and Hank Brown were not that good. But we don't know what's going on behind the scenes. Maybe he just wasn't ready. He was not playing a very pro-style offense in high school or against some elite-level competition. So maybe getting into the college game, it took him some time to learn. But all that doesn't matter now because he's transferred out to Baylor. And I actually like this landing spot with offensive coordinator Jake Spavital. Now, in saying all this, I have to say the qualifier. Jake Spavital has got to stay for the next couple years as the offensive coordinator for Baylor. But we saw what he was able to do last year with Sawyer Robertson. I actually thought Daquan Finn would be good there. It didn't work out. But Sawyer Robertson was extremely good. But he only has one more year of eligibility left. And assuming he comes back completely healthy, I expect him to be the starter for the most part of the 2026 season. So when I say go buy Walker White, you're probably going to have to wait another year. But he redshirts. He's got 4 more years of eligibility. So even if he is going to have to use some eligibility next year, you should get him for 3 years running this Baylor offense. And that is where I think he can thrive. When you talk about Jake Spavital as an offensive coordinator, his main influences when you talk about offense come from Dana Holgorsen at his time at West Virginia, who runs a very spread air raid type offense that is not afraid to run the quarterback. At that time at West Virginia, they had Will Grier, who was somewhat good for fantasy purposes, not much of a rushing threat, but did pass the ball a lot. And there were some people who thought he could have some NFL future. Obviously did not get drafted highly, and that did not come true. But his main influence on that, and a player that he did incredible things with, and all you guys are going to remember this, is Johnny Manziel with Kevin Sumlin at Texas A&M. We know what Johnny was able to do, and I don't want to sit there and say that Walker White can do that, the backyard ball that Johnny Manziel was able to do and just pull out these special plays, because I do think those type of players are rare. I think the last one we saw like that was probably Caleb Williams with what he was able to do at USC behind that pretty bad offensive line. But I do think Walker White can do some of that. Again, Johnny Manziel, not the most accurate passer, though I do think is a better passer than Walker White is currently and could make some NFL throws. Johnny Manziel's biggest thing getting in his way was Johnny Manziel, and that I don't think will be Walker White's problem. Walker White is a very humble kid. We've had him on our network multiple times. He talks about the things he needs to improve on. He talked about that all the time, improving his accuracy, improving his consistency. And I think finally getting the shot to do that, especially at a program like Baylor under Dave Aranda, who, after the Colorado game, we thought might get fired. That didn't happen. I do like Dave Aranda. I think he's one of the better coaches in the Big 12. Should be able to kind of right the ship with Walker White and have him perform fairly well. When we go and look at what Jake Spavital has done, specifically last year, they had a .961 rush explosiveness and a .472 offensive pass rate. So, I mean, they were kind of like right in the middle of everything. They did run the ball a lot in neutral game script situations. 55% of the time, they were running the ball in neutral game script situations with that. So, I think they will obviously be running the ball. They had a tremendous running back last year in redshirt freshman. Oh, goodness. Bryson Washington, who was just absolutely incredible. And I obviously hope that he doesn't transfer out from Baylor and stays there for the next couple years. If he does that, I think having him and Walker White in that backfield will create problems for the defenses, because there will be times where, whether it's an RPO or whether he's trying to decide if he wants to hand the ball off to Washington or him possibly take that run, it's going to force linebackers to come into the space and then, or read the ends, obviously, as well, and allow him to either hand the ball off to Washington for hopefully big games or for Walker White himself to take off, because he is a dangerous threat running the ball. And I truly mean that. He is a very, very dangerous threat. He's not afraid to be physical in those runs as well. And I think if given time, again, to improve his passing, he has all the tools to be an NFL quarterback. It really just comes down to the accuracy and the consistency. But coming into an offense that Jake Spavital runs, this air raid kind of spread offense that's not afraid to run the quarterback. Johnny Manziel did it again. Will Grier did it some, but not a lot. And then they did do it a little bit at Texas State as well, though not as, we're not successful at doing it, if we're being honest. Still, overall, I think can be very good. He's a player that right now is 1% rostered on Fantrax. 1%. And I will also say, I was not the biggest fan of his coming out. I did not have him I had him at the bottom of my tier 2 quarterbacks, where some of the other founders here and part of the recruiting team had him much higher beginning, because just how incredible his rushing ability is. And for me, I want a quarterback who can throw the ball. And so that's why for me, he's at the bottom of my tier 2. And I probably should have had him in my tier 3, because I think an incredible fantasy and CFF asset. I would say that I have some fears about him making it to the NFL level. But I have no doubt that if Sawyer Robertson gets hurt at any point in time last year and Walker White has a step in to be the quarterback too, or moving forward as the starting quarterback for this team, that he will not be an incredible fantasy asset. All they have on the team currently is Nate Bennett. I think Walker White is much better than him. At least I don't believe Nate Bennett has entered the transfer portal. Daquan Finn did. He went to Miami of Ohio. Go out and get yourself Walker White. You don't even have to get him in the freshman supplemental if you don't want, like I said, 1% rostered right now. Even if you don't want to use a 15th round pick on him, he is a guy that I would watch, because I think come at some point if Sawyer Robertson gets hurt, or at least the 2027 season, he could be an absolute fantasy stud for you moving forward for at least 3 years. But what do you guys think? Do you trust Jake Spavital, Dave Aranda, the Baylor Bears offense? Do you believe in Walker White, or is a dream over after 1 year, not even get to touch the field at Auburn? Let me know in the comments down below, and we'll talk to you guys again soon.